welcome to Let's Talk Nation. I'm your man, Rod Love. And for those of you who noticed, the general is not here tonight, but you may hear from him sometime tonight. But we also have our executive producer, Doc Polite, that's sitting in that seat tonight. Doc, how you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm living the life.
Hey, man, just like Greg normally does, or let me just go back and say how the general usually does it. How was your weekend this weekend, brother?
It was relaxing.
Relaxing? Doc, you didn't sound like you didn't do anything, man.
Well, I went out to the Marion County Flea Market to get some fresh vegetables.
Doc, you eat fresh vegetables, man?
Rod, I'm a workaholic. I was in here working on some projects that I got. I got it. I work with developers across the world. So I was working with one of them finishing up a project. So, when I say nothing, it's usually the nothing that other people don't get into.
Doc, I truly did nothing this weekend, man. I mean,
well, that's rare.
I finally got a chance to sit back and binge watch. My kids was looking at me like, Daddy, he's staying still. I got up, man, went to a friend's son's.
Did they ask you what was wrong with you?
They looked at me, but they realized Daddy get tired too. Daddy get tired too. But Doc, man, come on, when you telling people who they listening to, man, hey, if you're tuned in tonight, you're tuned in to Let's Talk Nation, and I can't do it like the general does it, but come on, you listening to the two most influential cats in Central Florida. Hey,
and their sidekick in the background that makes it happen.
Sidekick,
there you go. Hey, there you go. And the invisible sidekick.
Invisible sidekick. Hey, but you know what, man? I need to stop doing.
What?
I gotta stop listening to the Don Miller show. Because Don will get me crunk up, man. Hey, man, Don.
Yeah,
and
Don,
you know what?
Don has that effect.
Hey, but you know what? We can show love because it is a competition, but it's a brotherhood too.
Yeah.
And when I tell you, Don and Holly and D'Amica, and they got another cat, man, and I apologize, I don't remember his name, man. But man, they got a show. They got a show. I'm not telling y'all to tune out from us, but man, Don Miller show, man. Don get raw.
They can listen to both.
Hey,
we come on different times. So
you're right. But you know what? I want to give a shout out to my brother Don Miller because he is doing his thing over at Florida Man Radio. Keep doing your thing, brother.
You know what I love about Don? Don say the quiet parts out loud.
Yeah.
That nobody else has the courage. It needs to be said. A lot of the things he says actually do need to be said. Because if all we do is go around and toot people's horn, but never give them feedback on what they need to correct and work on, then we're doing a disservice to that person. See, I don't want a yes man.
You're right.
When I'm with you guys, I'm not a yes man.
Hey, I'm up here saying you're right, being your yes man. No, you're wrong, brother. Hey, Doc.
Huh?
Don, I mean, I got to tell you, if I had to have somebody back me up or have my back, man, Don is the one to do it.
Yep.
Don is the one to do it.
Absolutely.
But man, come on. All right, that's enough with the Don Miller promotion for right now. Hey, Doc, man, are you checking out what's taking place, man, around the country, around the world, and something that's just recently took place, man, in our own backyard?
What's that?
27 people arrested in a child predator sting in Jacksonville. 27 people.
It's amazing because if you pay attention, Sheriff Grady Judge does these type of stings all the time. Now that's Duval County.
But he was famous. I mean, Sheriff J.D. Grady, he was famous for starting this stuff.
Yeah.
But look at how it's really branched out.
Well, exactly, because what many in Florida begin to realize is that it's actually a real problem here.
Yeah.
There was a officer this weekend that was caught up in child pornography. Somewhere here in Central Florida.
That was Jacksonville too.
Yeah.
That was Jacksonville.
So what does it say about the level of trust that we can have with
Yeah.
certain professions. It makes you kind of go, you know, and so I think it's this. We have become such a participation nature nation that we are not holding people accountable for real.
Consequences, Doc. Consequences.
Exactly. Too often people are used to justifying, or we are afraid. And I know we're going to touch on the Sean Diddy story, but that in that instance, all of that stuff took place because people enabled it.
But Doc, but hit rewind just a little bit because and we hadn't even talked about the big fish that got caught up in this, and the big fish is ex Red Sox baseball player Austin Maddox.
Right.
They got caught up in the thing.
Yeah, he got caught in that, and you know, you never know what people's off-screen activities are.
Yeah, you're right.
Behind closed doors, because when we go in public, there's not a one of us alive that don't have on a mask.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're three people. Do you know the
well, break it down. I know you're about to break it down. Tell me who the three we are.
We are the people we think we are. We're the person we actually are, and we're the person we think we are. And a lot of times there is a divergence in those personalities. See, we're one way in public. Other people perceive us a certain way, then we think of ourselves in a certain way. A lot of us don't have the capacity to self-assess. This is why so many people do outlandish things, because they don't see themselves as being wrong.
But also, Doc, and I agree with you, but I also want to go up river a little bit more too. When you see things like this, shouldn't it be a cautionary tale for parents to be a little bit more vigilant when you talk about just watching over your own children?
Well, I read a story
because things like this exist.
I read a story this weekend, and I didn't know, I was gonna be on air to share this, but in the story, this woman was trying to sell her daughter for $20 in the United States now, and people actually called the police and would not let her go, and held her there with the child, and social services came out, of course, and got the child, but the lady was standing there asking people, "Will you give me $20 for her? I'll sell it to you for $20." So we have a whole section or portion of society that does not get the societal expectations. Society is a contract. Okay, living in a society, you have a social contract that we will all abide by certain norms and customs as human beings living together. And when the majority sensibility or morals are crossed, then we have an obligation and duty to report those things. But oftentimes, we got the culture of no snitching and that kind of stuff, or turning the blind eye.
Hey, so Doc, does this no snitching, does that help increase crime in communities, or does it decrease crime?
It actually increases it.
Correct.
And because of that, we begin to become numb to those things. When I was a kid, if you had someone in the neighborhood that participated openly in a drive-by shooting or crime, I would venture that 80% of the people in that community would tell on you. Oh no, I can remember my grandmother telling me, "You can't play with certain kids. Their family is not a good family. They're not good people. They don't come from good people." I don't want you playing with them. And people weren't afraid to set those limits and say that you're a bad person because you violate these rules of society.
Doc, I'm gonna just cut to the chase, man. I mean, it goes back to something that you said earlier, and it is all about consequences. It's about holding people accountable. I'd even go a step further, Doc. I think community stakeholders know this, and you will hear from law enforcement oftentimes. There's a small percentage, real small percentage of the population that goes out and does these heinous acts. And man, Doc, I don't know, how far we've come, but I think, man, if we go back to having real consequences, I think we'll see a constriction of a lot of the things, man. And no, it won't solve the world's problem, but Doc, I do believe that people need to know that there's a consequence for your action. If you look at what took place in California, I think it was, man, where, and I don't mean to just be singling out undocumented individuals, but beating up New York police officers on the streets of New York, get arrested, and then get out on your own recognizance, and then hit the road, can't find it. Doc, come on, man. What kind of public safety initiative is that?
Well, one of the problems is that, and before I say this, I'm going to qualify myself. I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I'm a blue dog Democrat. If y'all don't know what that is, look it up. I believe in very conservative values and actions. I believe the police have the right to police. You have bad actors in any vocation.
You're right.
So
you're right.
You can't. And we have to stop drinking the Kool-Aid. How many police related shootings of black people you think happened last year?
You know what? I should know this because I've sat through Dr. Nelson's training courses a number of times, man. But Doc, it's not the number that most people would be led to believe.
And so you watch these people make a mountain out of a anthill. Really, it's 12.
And Doc, let me qualify this too, man, and say, and I see Jacksonville in the house, man. They Lowell and they're true. I see the Jacksons in the house.
Mm-hmm.
But Doc, let me say this, man. It's no secret. I'm gonna speak for myself. I support law enforcement, and I'm also loud and vocal when there are bad actors in law enforcement. But I would say by and far, for the most part, man, you got law enforcement out there doing their job, man, daily, that need to get the support. And at the same time, I will go back and stand behind leaders like Sheriff Lima, Sheriff Mina, Sheriff Chitwood, our good friend, he's retired now, but Chief Roland. These guys, man, I'll stand behind them in their leadership, man, because when they see that they have a bad actor, they act. It's not one of those deals, man, where we got to wait a couple of years to see, which way this thing is going to go. And yeah, law enforcement is due their
you always
process as well.
One of the things I always have understood is you have to look for what's the motive. When you have people coming out speaking on behalf of certain groups and things like that, you have to look at the motive. Okay, there are people, and again, I'm going to say this. This is not the view of Rod Love or Greg Jackson or anybody. This Dr. Polite talking. We have a culture of people in our culture, in the black culture, who have commoditized victimhood.
Say that again, Doc.
They have commoditized victimhood. When you
break that down for me.
When you look at Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, many of the black so-called leadership who pontificate that they are in fact our leaders. They're not my leaders. I don't need a leader. And you look at the Black Lives issue. Millions of dollars donated to the organization. These people take it and use it for a lavish lifestyle.
Not one dime made it to the black community, by the way.
Exactly. Look at the Florida elected leader that was convicted for using money that they collected for students' scholarships for their own use. And people literally don't want you to say anything about it in our community. You know, and so how do we detach ourselves from the reality? Because too many times these bad actors and this bad behavior is justified or dismissed in our community, or as well, you know, other races do it too. And that's not a standard that you want to promote.
There's no substitute for doing the right thing. The only problem that I have now, man, is the fact that you get more clicks for doing the wrong thing. I mean, I don't understand it.
Well, we again, the big story over the weekend was what went on in Congress. Okay, the shouting match and the insults.
Oh, between
AOC,
Marjorie Taylor
Greene, and Jasmine Crockett. Now, you think back 30 years, that kind of behavior in Congress would have been repulsive. We didn't have leaders that acted in that way.
But Doc, think about this, man. Think about this, and I'm gonna say on both ends.
Yeah.
And I want to be totally objective here. Both politicians were playing to their base.
Exactly.
You know, and so that kind of behavior is acceptable to people who vote for them.
And that's the problem. We've allowed discourtesy and demonization to become social norms. We talk about liberals versus conservative. We don't see Democrats versus Republicans.
But Doc, and you know, man, you kind of taking us off course here, but I'm gonna go there because this is getting good. Now, I saw the piece with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I listened to what she said, and it was totally insulting. She said something about Crockett's eyebrows or eyelashes or something. Totally inappropriate. Doc, you know, when we were coming up, we were taught to take the high road, right?
Right.
But do you remember, oh man, the city councilman, I think in St. Louis, he passed away now, Mays.
Yeah.
What was his first name? Tony?
Yeah, Anthony Mays.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's just so interesting, man. I mean, and that brother told it like it was.
Yeah.
And but now, Doc, we have this mentality that when other people go low,
we go lower.
We go lower. You know, it was Michelle Obama who said when they go low, we go high.
And you gotta think about this, okay? And look at the people who stand on the bully pulpit. It used to be that public indictment would render them to the point of going back, examining what they say, and then apologizing sincere.
Yeah.
And now we no longer have that.
Well,
they don't apologize. They double down.
Yeah, you're right.
And so taking the high road no longer works. They've rendered that because they decided, well, you know, hey, I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna dig my heels in.
Hey, do people really say I'm sorry anymore and mean it?
No, a lot of times it's not sincere.
But if you get a sorry, Doc, let me ask you this question: if you get a sorry, is that a sign of weakness? Is that a sign of weakness?
No, but you know why you get a sorry? A lot of times the sorry is because they got caught.
Because you're right. Hey, let me get a phone line out, Doc, because this is an interesting conversation. Hey, you're tuned in to Let's Talk Nation. If you want to dial in and give your perspective on this conversation, hey, please join us. That phone number is 321-483-7002. Once again, that phone number is 321-483-7002. Join the conversation. So, Doc, I don't know, man. The times have changed, man. I mean,
it is, and we need to get back to normalizing civility. I don't need to know my neighbor's political affiliation to have a relationship with them. And we're at that point now. Are you a conservative or you know? I was online in a forum, and a guy replied to me and said, "Well, you're a liberal," and I said, "I didn't say anything about my political association. Why do you assume that I'm liberal? What about what I said says that I'm liberal?" And it was a response based on not what I said, but on my skin color.
But Doc, I think everything is vilified now. If you're a liberal, you're vilified. If you're a conservative, you're vilified. Progressive, and I don't know if it's more so that these titles that have been identified, because now when you look at progressives, you're hearing things about criminal justice reform. You're looking at initiatives that California and New York has ran to the finish line on when they talk about bail reform. And yeah, I do believe that people need to get a fair shot. I do believe that people deserve a second chance. But
okay, and I agree with you when it's warranted. But let me ask you this. Now I'm going to use this analogy. Okay. If you know that something is going to elicit a certain response, would you go and do it? And I've talked to family members. I ain't going to say which family members, but I said this to them. I said, you get in your car and you ride around smoking weed. Now, you know that it's not legal. You know that driving under the influence is not legal. So why would you get in your car and drive around smoking weed? You could have stayed home and smoked weed, or you could have waited till you got to your destination and smoked weed. So when you get pulled over, what is your justification? What complaint could you possibly have when you are well aware of the consequences of smoking weed in your car? See, and we want to turn that into a racial thing in many aspects in our community, that, oh, the police just screwing with me, or they're picking on black people. When the fact of the matter is, you put yourself in that circumstance, and you're deflecting responsibility for your choice and your actions.
But Doc, and I agree with you, but I think it goes further than that too. I mean, Doc, I don't, I'm gonna speak for myself. I want my kids to come back home at night. When they have an engagement, if they have an engagement with law enforcement, I want them to come back home safe. My kids understand the yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. My kids understand the expectation. You get pulled over, come on, man, let's not make a traffic stop. Let's not make a citation more than what it should be. We see people losing their life because that interaction, that engagement.
One of the things that I could tell you, and I watch this a lot of times in police stops, people are reacting to triggers, what they consider disrespect or challenge to authority. In many instances, whether it's black, white, or whatever. And we need to teach conflict resolution in schools. See, it's a lot of stuff that we're not teaching. We're not teaching human behavior or social behavior in school. And it needs to be a part of the curriculum, because people need to learn how to act. If you look at, have you ever watched educational videos on Chinese and Asian culture and how they teach their kids? from the time the child goes into preschool, the first thing that they teach them is social skills. Okay, social skills and how to work together. So the kids get to school, they straighten up the school. They don't have janitors. Excuse me. And the students take care of the school. They don't have janitors. Okay. So those kids learn social responsibility and a social connection and obligation to each other.
Doc, I hear you. I hear you, and I'm not trying to skip over what you're saying, but I'm going back to one of my Dr. Nelson courses and classes, because basically, Doc, what we're talking about is public safety here, are we not?
Right. Exactly.
So we're talking about public safety, and Doc, let's just shoot from the hip, because I think we dance around it too much. Yes, Doc, there is a level of behavior that you have with your interaction with law enforcement, but I will say this to you as well. Public safety is not something that law enforcement does to the community. Public safety is something that law enforcement should be doing with the community.
With the community. Exactly.
And so if it's going to be with the community, law enforcement needs to come to the table and understand that community's issues as well. The community needs to understand that law enforcement, their duty, their job is public safety, and that interaction is critical, Doc. But let's be frank.
But Rod, what do the politicians tell the law enforcement community? Be tough on what?
Well, when you say politicians, don't mix them all in there. But yeah,
the majority of politicians' posture is that law enforcement needs to be tough on criminals, and a lot of it is coded language. And the politicians are pushing those buttons for their own agenda, like to their base. And so when we have that, their language is not one of public safety or cooperation. They are demonizing and vilifying a certain portion, and it's understood as that old wink and nod. It's part of the Southern strategy. So I'm not saying that law enforcement in a blanketed process adheres to that, but a lot of it has become culturally ingrained in the mindset of many in law enforcement.
But Doc, here's what I say to that. And I think this conversation, man, you have organizations, private organizations, you got government entities. Doc, they have training that takes place during the course of the year. I don't care if it's law enforcement. I don't care if it's public works. I don't care if it's education. No matter what it is, Doc, they have trainings that take place over the course of the year. If it's training in public safety, if it's training in you're a teacher in terms of what your skill set is and what you're supposed to do with students. If it's public works, what you're out there on the streets doing, there is some level of training. The only area that there's no consistent ongoing training that takes place is when you're working with local stakeholders and their interaction. Let's just say specifically their interaction with law enforcement. There's nothing out there to engage local communities on a regular basis. Nothing.
Having spent a significant time in the military, I can tell you that groupthink that develops, because I've been part of that.
What group? What? Because I'm talking about the lack of engagement and training with communities.
A lot of times what's going on is that classroom tells you one way, and then the real world tells you another way.
Doc, you're missing my point. You're missing where I'm going. You go ahead. You're missing where I'm going.
When you're in the classroom, you're told not to do X, Y, Z. When you go to execute it, you find out that there is a difference in that theoretical and the actual execution of a policy. So you may have to make adjustments on the fly. Now, God bless them, but you got to understand too that law enforcement has to make on the fly choices. Now, when they go out there in the community and all the community, and I'm circling back around to the community's responsibility, when they are automatically met with disrespect and potential violent situations,
and then law enforcement on the street trying to do their job, engaged in the situation, and then you have folk that are seniors that are elders in the community that standing there yelling and inciting the crowd when law enforcement is trying to do their job, making the situation far more dangerous than it should be.
You know, and just go ahead with your point, because I'm trying to find something for us to show.
Well, you know, again, Doc, I say this, and I mean, I don't know if anything is going to ever change, but government invests money in a whole bunch of things. But one of the things I think it needs to invest money into is regular and ongoing engagement with community stakeholders. When you see community stakeholders that go through the shoot and don't shoot simulation that law enforcement is faced with on a regular basis, you have more community stakeholders that actually shoot civilians in these shoot and don't shoot simulations, and then they become they understand to some degree of what law enforcement is out there faced with.
Right. And we have to understand that they're reacting to the environment in which they find themselves. It's scary. It is scary. Have you ever been robbed at gunpoint, Rod?
No, and I pray that I never am, but go ahead.
I'm going to tell you something. I've never shared this with you. You know, we talk a lot, but I have experienced being robbed at gunpoint 8 times.
8?
I ain't gonna tell you how I used to live. But
you said 8?
8.
Hey, a cat only got 9 lives, man.
And in 7 of those circumstances, I wasn't able to do anything other than allow myself to be robbed. And it's a moment. It's a moment. This is why now in this season of my life, it's certain places I just won't go.
Why put yourself at risk?
Yeah, because I understand that sitting in a restaurant in a certain place, the likelihood of something going down is real. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, you know, I want to be in the hood around my people and take in the ambiance. No. Because my experience tells me that these places are often targeted or opportunity for certain actions to take place. A fight, a shooting, a robbery. So go ahead.
No, go ahead, Doc. Finish, because you talked about apologies, I want to hit one.
Being armed with the reality of the circumstances and not just dismissing it gives me a greater understanding and responsibility for my own safety.
Well, Doc, I got 2 law enforcement plugs, and this is a law enforcement engagement piece. But do you know who won the PGA tournament this Sunday?
Yeah, I forgot the name.
But
I did see the news story.
Yeah, Scotty Scheffler. Do you know what happened to him before he even played in that tournament?
Yes. I saw it. I saw the videos and story about it. You know, him going around law enforcement telling him to stop. And he
you didn't see any body cam though.
No, I didn't.
You want to know why you didn't?
Why?
Because there is none.
Oh.
There is none. And, you know, if you believe all the talking heads today, this morning, tomorrow, it's anticipated that the charges will be dropped. But let's tell the story about Scotty Scheffler. Scotty Scheffler is one of the up and rising PGA talents. He was on his way to the PGA tournament, and apparently law enforcement may not have known who he was. He was trying to gain entry into the tournament. I guess he drove around to gain access, and I hadn't seen the police report or anything, but they stopped him. He got arrested. He spent the night, I believe, in jail because there are reports that he actually warmed up in his jail cell in preparation to be released to go play in the tournament. And boy, wouldn't you have it that this guy was blessed enough to where he actually won the tournament by one stroke, finished 21 under. For those of you in that are not familiar with golf, 21 under is that meant this guy shot 21 under what the course is, more than any other player that played. I think the next one behind him was 20 under, but this guy actually got out of jail, Doc,
and
and
went and played
and won the tournament. But you know, they're saying that the PGA is more than likely not going to take that tournament back to Kentucky anytime soon, based on how that all
so because of that, this state has lost millions in revenue.
It will lose millions in revenue.
And I'm trying to find this story. What happened was the police were trying to question a man, and the guy took off running, and someone, you could hear them talking, and they are screaming at the cops, "You can't chase him," and F the police and all this stuff in the background. And my point is that the community attitude and behavior needs to change, because the police are not going to come to my house and rob me, but that criminal will. When I lived in Pine Hills, and this is not an indictment of that, I'm just stating fact. Okay, I live in a factual world. Our house was broken into either 4 or 5 times in the 10 years we lived there. That's too much.
Hey Doc, let me ask you this: in communities, and let's just say in poor communities, communities that experience a great deal of unfortunate despair, poverty, crime, what's one of the things that you think could actually help lift communities up and lift their value?
Number one, neighbors getting to know neighbors is powerful. Okay, when neighbors know each other, they are more vigilant in protecting each other. Okay, when they have that relationships are power structures. Okay, and it means that I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I don't have to fight the crime by myself. I'm more likely to be proactive than reactive in my community when I know that other people in my community have similar views and values. If you're in Pine Hills, and Pine Hills has this stigma of being a poor community when it's actually a middle class community. When you look at the median income over there, it's significantly middle class. Well, what was the old middle class? Shoot, and nobody's middle class anymore.
But I got to tell you, Doc, when you talk about Pine Hills, you got to be talking about Sandra Fapney Hall, who's making a difference in that community, and a whole host of other people, man, that are doing some great work in that community that are impacting that community. But Doc, my point is this: do you think that when crime goes down, valuation increases?
Well, yes, in general it does, but there are some underlying things, and I didn't understand this until I got into researching real estate. There are actually bad players that contribute to the demise of those neighborhoods. So you want me to touch on it?
Yeah, say that again, Doc.
I said there are bad players that actually contribute to the downfall and demise of those neighborhoods.
Go ahead, elaborate on that, because I need to learn something.
Here's the real unsaid story of gentrification. Oftentimes what happens is a developer or real estate entity will come into a community like that, and they will buy large properties like a shopping mall that's aged and things like that, infrastructure type of things, and they sit on them. They let them go into despair, and that drives down the desirability of that area. And that's how they start gentrification now. It's a blueprint. You wonder why these communities all around the countries, certain communities all look the same. They look broken down in despair. You got buildings there that are not repaired or super aged, and there's, excuse me, there's no refurbishment of them. That's often intentional because that despair looks drives down the values. Now I can come in and redevelop that community at a much lower cost and drive it up and make money in the
But
market.
hold up, Doc. I hear you, and I don't disagree. But I also think another component of that is stakeholder investment. And I'm not saying shareholder.
How are
I'm
you
saying
the
stakeholder.
stakeholder? How are you the stakeholder, Rod, when you don't own your property?
Doc. When you're a stakeholder, when you say don't own, I'm talking about you got folk in those communities, man, that are buying those places. When you say don't own, yeah, the mortgage is a form of ownership.
Do you? Okay, again, we'll go back to Pine Hills. Who do you think? What group of people you think owns the majority of real estate in Pine Hills? I won't have you answer that. I won't have you answer that. Don't answer. Don't answer. I'm gonna answer.
I know where you're going with that, but Doc,
because
man, no, Doc.
I don't want to stigmatize you by saying this, but I'm saying it based on research, what I did. And there's nothing wrong with this group owning it, but I want you to understand what goes into how areas are treated.
Hey Doc, we got a couple of callers trying to get through that line, man, and they're sending me messages. There's a problem with that.
It should be there we go. Let me see here. All right. Well, they're not for some reason. I don't know why it's not connecting, but it is there. It is up.
Okay. But Doc, I have to say, man, you got to have stakeholder engagement. Doc, go ahead and hit that 453. Yeah, return that one.
Okay.
But Doc, man, stakeholders got to get involved, man, in their communities. I mean, I think that's bottom line. Hey, we got Miss Cheryl, who's been a trooper, man, and we got to get Cheryl to come back on, man, and co-host one of these evenings.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because has she been to the new studio? I don't think so.
No, she hadn't been to the new studio, man.
So we got to get her on for sure.
Yeah, get her on and have her come on and model in the studio, man.
Yeah, you know, she's one of them supermodels. She retired supermodel.
Hey, but Doc, this is a good conversation, man, that we're having. We just got to have more of them, but it's not going to be a kumbaya.
No, it's not. And the thing about it is, and it's not to indict anybody. This is a necessary conversation because I'm sure that we're giving some insight into things that people had never thought about in terms of gentrification of things that happen in our community and we're showing them that in fact with the stats on police shootings, okay, that's a subject that's often used to vilify and manipulate the public against law enforcement because
Doc, here's what I would tell you, and you're familiar with this, but I would recommend that every community, and I'm gonna just say in particular in the state of Florida, I'm gonna just keep it to Florida right now, communities that are impoverished, if you would, that have all of these different issues. They got the majority of the referrals for law enforcement service calls, referrals for delinquency, child welfare, engagement with seniors. For those communities, Doc, I would recommend that they call 21st century research and evaluations to get an action plan, a community action plan. That community action plan is comprised of those stakeholders coming together, having an exchange, and it being facilitated by Dr. Nelson But then you have that same engagement that takes place with law enforcement. And then Dr. Nelson brings both parties together, and that is the formation of that community action plan. And at the end of the day, you can say all you want to say. All of these things that we're spending money on, if we're not spending any money on regular and ongoing engagement with the communities that government is putting all this money in and not realizing where the outcomes are coming from. Doc, there's a difference in inputs and outputs. And those input and outputs, subsequently, they should get us those outcomes. But if we don't see that, we need to be sitting back saying we need to reassess how our money's being spent. Hey, Doc, I don't know if you dialed that number back, but I think it's really important for me to let the residents of City of Orlando, District 5, know tomorrow's your day. Stand up and go vote. Tomorrow is the election day for District 5. I'm not going to go through all the candidates, but tomorrow is your day to take responsibility for your own community. And that's by electing your representative that you're familiar with, that their values are similar to yours.
And please don't make your choice. This is an appeal for me. Don't make your choice based on who you like.
Emotion.
Make your choice on who you know will be effective representation for you. That's very important. A person that can come in and help get capital investment into the community, okay? A person that's going to see and understand the opportunities that they need to champion to make it better on you as a citizen in that community. You got to think about that, not because they went to a certain high school or a certain college or this and that. That has nothing to do with performance-based outcomes. It just does not. Look at the record of the individuals in the race. There are two I know that are highly qualified, and I'm not going to say their names, but they're highly qualified. Why? Because their resume and their work in the community reflects that.
Doc, and let's continue to elaborate on this a little bit. The population of District 5 is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50,000 people.
Right.
You got approximately 21,000 registered voters.
Right.
So the question is going to be, what the turnout's going to be.
In the last race, only 4,000 voters. We'll say 4,000. We're giving you a couple of hundred.
You're right. Yeah. But by definition, that was a low voter
voters
turnout.
in that community came out and voted. And Commissioner Hill won with, I think, 1,300 votes, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Without a runoff.
So that shows you right there. And remember, people, if you're allowing 5% of the voters to decide for you what level of representation you get, then that's on you.
Yeah. You know what, Doc, we got to get Cheryl co-hosting from the chat box. She co-hosted from the chat box. But basically what we're saying is, you know what? If that low voter turnout, let me tell you what the low voter turnout will do. You'll have a small percentage of people who are deciding when your garbage is picked up, what your public safety looks like, what local interaction with government looks like. When it comes down to voting on these
city-funded programs,
city-funded programs,
infrastructure, sidewalks, road repair.
Hey, and
all of those things. Blight.
And don't fuss, don't argue, don't complain if you don't go out and vote. Don't say your vote doesn't make a difference if you don't go vote.
You know, I would say this. That needs to be part of it's just the reality. That needs to be part of the complaint process. Did you vote?
Hey, you know what? I wonder, Miss Walker said that's a pet peeve of hers. I wish she could call into the show to tell us why is it a pet peeve. Tell
her to try again. I don't know.
Michelle, call that number 321-483-7002. Tell us why it's a pet peeve.
We do in fact have that number up. I'm not sure why we're not seeing calls come in.
Well, I saw the one, Doc, on the screen. But yeah, Michelle, if that is a peeve of yours, I want you to call us and tell us why. But Doc, man, we really gotta, man, we gotta do better, man. That old saying about if you know better, you do better.
Yeah,
We gotta do better, man.
that's true. We can't say they.
Man, I
We
saw
can't say
something.
they.
Hey, I
They
saw
won't let
something.
us.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I saw something a week ago, Doc, from the City of Apopka new commissioner, Miss Nadia Anderson,
Hmm.
and man, she spoke up during the city commission meeting, and she spoke up in reference to being supportive of law enforcement, which she should, but she also spoke up to say she would also still be the same champion and leader if she believed law enforcement was out of line. But
Yeah,
we gotta have people in the community that don't encourage bad.
but
Doc, we
Rob,
gotta call her.
let me say this, and I know
Doc, we
I'll
gotta
get
call her.
okay. Uh, you can answer it. No, here we go.
Okay.
All right, you're on caller. You're on the air.
Hey, turn it up a little bit, Armando. All right, call her. We got you on the air. Hey, Miss Cheryl, how are you doing? Man, we are doing great. Hey, great to hear from you. We got a host chair waiting for you now. And you know my partner in crime out there winning another case somewhere. Hey, hey, that's all he do is win, win, win. Hey, Michelle, tell me why do you have a pet peeve about people who don't vote?
Hey, Armando, turn that up. The volume for that channel 5.
Hey, Doc, we hearing you, Doc, through the Michelle. Go ahead and keep going. I'm sorry about that. Wait. Hold up, Michelle. You said the supervisor election when you was growing up came out to your high school? Wow, wow. Well, you know what? Our supervisor of election is Mr. Glenn Gelzine, and Glenn is always open to new innovations. He's always open to looking at what's next. What can we do next? And so I'm going to let him know what what we heard this evening, because I think you have a lot of merit with what you're bringing to the table.
And not only that, I mean, there were so many other services provided back then. It was almost just a given. You know, you have hearing tests and vision tests, and all those things were provided in Orange County Public Schools. Now, I left for a period, and I was in school in Leon County, but when I returned as a high school student, and I went to West Orange, that was where I was registered to vote at 18 years old.
Hang on, Michelle, where did you grow up at?
When I came here from Boston, we lived in Pine Hills, pre-white flight.
Oh, so a supervisor of elections here in Florida, in Orange County, came out to your school.
Sure did.
So that would have had to have been Bill Cowles.
I believe so.
Well, I mean, because Bill was the supervisor of election for almost 30 years. And we know you still a spring chicken.
I graduated in 1983.
Okay. Hey, well, you know what, Michelle, I see some of our good friends that are chiming in, and, you know, Chet Glover, Eddie Battle, and, you know, a lot of the folk that have supported this. I know they're going to look forward to you coming on and co-hosting like you have been before. So can we get your commitment to come on back and join us?
Sure.
But tell you what, we got a seat waiting for you, Michelle. You're always welcome here. I see the clock on the wall is telling me that I got to go ahead and start bringing this thing in for a landing. But Michelle, we appreciate your call. But call some folk. Tell them get their behind up and go vote tomorrow if they live in District 5.
That's done.
Hey, we appreciate you. Look forward to seeing and hearing from you real soon.
Take care, guys.
All righty, take care.
All right.
Hey, Doc.
Yeah.
We got less than 20 seconds, man. Any quick last words?
No, well, first of all, we ain't got less than 20 seconds. We on the network, so.
Yeah, but we got to keep things on the time now.
I'm just.
Come on. This is
I'm
our
just
executive
messing with
producer,
you.
the one who's normally
you know, one
telling
of the
me.
things I want to say is let's keep the Hispanic community in our prayers concerning the 8 people who were killed in that bus accident by a drunk driver. I don't know if you saw that over the weekend.
Yes, and Doc, I agree with you, man. We definitely want to keep our Hispanic brothers and sisters in prayer. Man, there's a lot of things going on in the world, but what we need to do is we need to focus on how do we care about each other. With that, Doc, hey, I'm going to tell you like I tell the general, brother, you don't have to go home.
But I got to get out of here.
You got to get out of here, brother. Okay. Hey, we'll see you next week on Let's Talk Nation. I'm your man, Rod Love. The general is out winning the case. And Doc, thank you, man, for sitting in that chair and doing the best job that you can do, which we know is a great job.
Always
y'all
my
next week.
pleasure. Always my pleasure, my friend. I just have to stay out of trouble for an hour.
That's hard for you to do. Hey, we'll see y'all next week on Let's Talk Nation.